It's Friday, so you know what that means. It's time to find out what's on at Cineworld Cinemas. I am Luke Owen. I'm joined by Laurie Blake, and here's what's coming up on today's show.
We look at the latest releases in Cineworld cinemas, including Broken Hearts Gallery from Selena Gomez, the mind-trawling Roads Not Taken starring Javier Bardem, and brutal New Zealand story Savage.
We'll be taking a look at the first trailer for Denis Villeneuve's Dune.
And we'll be talking over the latest movie news, including Tom Cruise filming his latest crazy stunt for Mission Impossible 7.
But Laurie, first, let's take a look at the new releases in Cineworld cinemas this week, including the film I think I'm most excited for this week. I was watching the trailer for this morning, Broken Hearts Gallery. So this is from executive producer Selena Gomez. It was directed by Natalie Kretinsky. It's the directorial debut for her. She's written episodes of Gossip Girl and Grey's Anatomy, so my wife is bound to love this. Currently holds a 90% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's about this a woman who's going through a difficult breakup, and when she goes through difficult, heartbreaking breakups, she keeps like little mementos of that relationship, and she can't kind of like let go of the relationship because she's not letting go of the mementos, and in the end opens up an art gallery for these sort of like heartbreaking mementos of previous relationships, and it becomes this whole thing. All the while she starts to fall in love with because it's a gallery slash boutique hotel.
Bloody hipsters.
Drinking skinny lattes. And that's run by Darcy. What's his name? Darcy Montgomery. Was Billy from Stranger Things, but most importantly, the Red Ranger from the Power Rangers reboot a few years ago. And yeah, she sort of falls in love with him by the looks of things. I'm so in for this movie. I think this looks really, really lovely.
Yeah, it's got a very sort of, from the looks of the trailer, it's got very sweet undertones, and seems to be that kind of like lovely, someone sort of thawing from their issues and their past and stuff, and obviously like helping other people overcome their problems at the same time. It seems like a very sort of empowering movement that she starts with this Broken Hearts Gallery, but it's also got that kind of like bitter edge of comedy in it that you get from films like Blockers and Booksmart and that lot. Like it's got sort of that rich vein of like very funny, like there's some really cracking jokes in the trailer, and I think Geraldine Viswanathan is like amazingly funny, and she's so good in Blockers, and I think like she's clearly playing a skew on that character here as well, like not to be like typecast, but she's playing that sort of same slightly messy character here. So I think it'd be really interesting to see how this comes out, because it does look really, really fun. She does seem like a hot mess who causes a lot of havoc going through her life. So I think I think it will be one of those ones that's like very, very funny, heartwarming, but most importantly, I think quite uplifting when we come to the end of it, as it sort of seems to grow beyond itself and become a bit of a movement.
Yeah, Geraldine Viswanathan, I thought she was my standout from Blockers. Like I thought Blockers was a really, really funny film anyway, and like John Cena was great in it, but I thought she was so funny. And you're right, like we've seen sort of this movement in movies as of late, where we're quote unquote allowing women to just sort of like make the disgusting jokes that guys have been making for the past 40 odd years of cinema, and now women are getting to make those jokes as well. They're making jokes about masturbation and things like that, and that's great. And it feels kind of new, fresh, and different, even though like every film appears to be doing it. But I think this film looks really, really fun. Molly Gordon is also in the movie as well, who I loved in Booksmart and particularly Good Boys. And as I said, Darcy Montgomery, who's great in Stranger Things, but importantly, was the Red Ranger in that massively underappreciated Power Rangers reboot that came out.
There was so little Power Rangers in it, Luke. There was so little Power Rangers.
Well, that's because we were building to the sequel, Lauren. We're never going to get. They stole it from us.
I think he's got the interesting job in this film, Darcy, because he's got to be the sort of the magic dream boy here who turns up and is like, I'm running a boutique hotel. Why are you in my car? Etc. Etc.
I can't have dairy.
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting flip on the sort of genre as well, because I think he gets to be sort of the object of affection who maybe is a little bit more one dimensional than the other characters, which is great because it gives the other characters time to shine. It looks really fun.
Yeah. Also, in more than half of Cineworld cinemas this week, The Road's Not Taken. This is from Sally Porter, the director of Ginger and Rosa. Got a really cool cast in this with Javier Bardem, Elle Fanning, Laura Linney, and Salma Hayek. And it follows the day in the life of an author with onset dementia who drifts into various different lives that he never had while sort of like building this relationship with his daughter. The reviews that have come out for this said that it is a tough watch because of the subject matter that it's dealing with, but very, very rewarding. What did you make of the trailer?
Yeah, it's like a sliding doors esque. The road's not taken. It's all about different pathways and things that never happened. But yeah, I mean, the trailer presents it kind of confusingly, and I think that's the correct way to be handling this. Like, dementia is obviously traumatic for everyone who it kind of touches, and whether that's you're suffering from it or whether you are happen to be the carer. And I think it's equally as confusing for the carers as it can be for the patient in some ways, because they're obviously also looking at someone from the outside and going, where are you?
Mm,
What do you think is happening? And they're obviously like confused stuff. And this is maybe more of an expert, like a not a whimsical exploration of it, but like it's obviously like a sort of fantasization of like what's happening in people's minds during moments in which they have dementia. Maybe it's maybe a romanticization to some degree, but
yeah.
obviously, like, it's going to be a very, very tough watch, because there are going to be these bittersweet moments of him viewing parts of his past and all these lives that he didn't really lead, and then you're always dragged back to reality by what's actually happening with because Elle Fanning's playing his daughter, right? And so she's
Yeah.
sort of, yeah, and she's probably it seems like she's the primary carer in that sense, and she's really having a tough time with things, trying to I guess, like, just guide him through his daily life, really.
Yeah, from the trailer, it kind of reminded me a little bit of a way of, or in a way rather, of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, in sort of like the way that it's going to be presented. There's a moment in the trailer where he's laying down on a bed, Javier Bardem is laying down on a bed, and Elle Fanning's caring for him. But there's things moving past the window as if he's on a train. It might be that he's in the train in his sort of like his dream world state, but in the bed in the real world. So I think, yeah, there might be. I mean, you use the word whimsical, and I think there might be some of that sort of to this story.
Yeah, it's definitely like it'd be interesting to see sort of a visualization of what's going on in the minds of someone. And obviously, like, if reviews are saying it's a tough but rewarding watch, and you've got people like Javier Bardem in the lead roles, like, I think this can only be good in that sense, and can only be a very thoughtful, poignant, probably, look at a very, like a unfortunately very common illness that many people suffer from, but that I think probably is only really presented in TV in a very certain way. Like, this
Mhm.
this is a bit more of an exploration than we generally speaking get in cinema and television. So I think it'd be well worth seeing.
And lastly, in limited sites this week, Savages, which is inspired by the true stories of New Zealand street gangs across 30 years, and kind of looks at this character, Danny, in three pivotal moments of his life. And it looks pretty brutal. Like, this looks like it is not holding back.
Yeah, so this is like Sons of Anarchy New Zealand chapter, basically, isn't it?
Mm.
It's yeah, it does look pretty grim and grisly, but obviously such is the life of a motorcycle gang. But this seems like it's doing very good, like, work in terms of the sort of three time periods. You're getting quite an interesting perspective on this man's life. This leading character, Danny. You're sort of seeing him being carted off to like a boys' home that is one of the most notorious in New Zealand, which obviously messed him up to some degree. You see him in his teenage years having come out and made his best friend, who's also in the biker gang later on, and the sort of, I guess, formation of the gang is called the Savages. I don't know whether that's they formed the gang or whether they joined the gang later on, but obviously, like, that motorcycle gangs have particularly harsh like joining rituals in the first place to
Mm.
get patched and all that kind of stuff. This is all things I learned from Sons of Anarchy, by the way, so it might be wrong. And then you've got him as a, like, this older, heavily, like, facially tattooed veteran of the gang, and kind of all of the I guess the depths that he'll go to sort of keep his position there, and it seems like a very violent way of life, and it seems like he still has the same struggles with his family that he had as a kid. So maybe it's a story of arrested development to some degree there, where he's not really grown up very much because his kind of emotional bandwidth is quite narrow. But it does look incredibly interesting, and I mean, if Road's Not Taken is a tough watch, this is like maybe it could be a tougher watch because it really does look like it's no holds barred.
Yes, and if you're looking for some lighter relief, Bill and Ted Face the Music will be out next week. Tickets are available now, and you can buy those in the video description down below using the links there. We'll have a full review of it next week. Fear is the Mind Killer, Laurie Blake. The first trailer for Dune has dropped from, and I said it in the intro to this show, Denis Villeneuve, but I believe it's for Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve, yeah.
Yes, so apologies for my idiocy on that one. But yeah, the trailer's out, man. What did you make of it?
I mean, it's fitting his color palette, isn't it, Mister Villeneuve? He loves a bit of orange, doesn't he? Yeah, this looks like what you would imagine from someone who he did Blade Runner, and it sort of fits that sci-fi mold. This is kind of, I guess, like if 2049 is 2049 is it Blade Runner? If that is kind of a cinematic reworking of a cinema classic, which in turn was taken from a sci-fi classic novel. This is just going straight to that source material of another sci-fi classic novel, probably the sci-fi classic novel, and just reworking it. And yeah, this looks like the kind of big budget brutalist space epic that you would expect from Denis Villeneuve. I think it's like it kind of flops onto that other side that Blade Runner is very technological, and I think like this Dune opens up that level of being like it's a sort of wasteland expanse with bits of kind of tech in it, but I think everything was so rugged and durable in Frank Herbert's book that like you get this really different aesthetic, and I think it does look amazing. This trailer made it look really, really cool.
Yeah, because you've read the book, haven't you?
I have read the book. Yeah, it's. I'm going to say it now. This is one of those ones like it's a bit like Tenet, where I think you're going to come out of it going, and what actually happened? Because
which I mean, I'll be honest, like that kind of was the same with the '84 original, like the David Lynch one. I mean, I went to the cinema to see it a couple of years ago. And I hadn't seen it in years either. I probably hadn't seen it since I was a student. And even then, like after multiple rewatch that movie, like there's so much like explanation in that movie. There's so much exposition of just voiceovers being like, so here's what's happening. And yet I still came away from the movie like having a Blue's Clues, mate.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's incredible. Like, it is an incredibly dense and complex book. Really, like I think, not in terms of plot, in terms of setting. Like it's Paul, the main character, is the son of a duke, and they move to this planet Arrakis because he's been given control of that. And the idea is that like the reason they want to go to Arrakis is because it's rich in this thing called spice, which is kind of like it is a spice. It's also a drug. It's like everyone uses it. It flavors food. It flavors coffee. But the more you take of it, the more you rely on it. There's a lot of potency to this, and it's a huge business globally. And then there's betrayal and strandings on the planet, and then Paul also has this other destiny that is tied deeply with the people who are native to the planet of Arrakis or Dune, and this whole thing with the sandworms, which are in the trailer, and like. That I think they obviously are the iconic thing from Dune that everyone remembers is these huge megalithic worms that live in the sand, and that whole, they can sense a vibration from miles away. So when you walk on the sand, you have to do it in a very specific way, and it all becomes about like taming them. And I think it's going to be like I'm really excited to see it on the big screen because I just think it's such a sort of sumptuous book. Like it really sucked me in the novel when I read it. Like I was really rooting for Paul, and even though like so much of it's about prophecy and fulfilling a destiny, so you do know where it's going very early on because it's all laid out for you. But seeing him achieve that and kind of making his way through the book and rising up and kind of becoming this leader that he was born to be really does have this power to it, and I think like seeing it play out with huge effects in huge spaces with a massive cast and all these spaceships and these armies and all of that kind of stuff can only make it better because yeah, the book does a brilliant job of conjuring those images, but I can't wait to see what someone else's mind has conjured when they think of those
Absolutely,
things.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I mean, like then even I'm really excited about this because David Lynch had a heck of a time with the 1984 original. His original cut of the movie I think was 3 hours long, and then Dino De Laurentiis just took an absolute hacksaw to it to be like, right, let's make this 2 hours, or let's make this
Mm,
into 2 1 hour movies. And so I'm excited to see like how he manages to condense it down, and he's the sort of director that I think can condense something like that down to tell a compelling narrative that doesn't miss out all the detail and stuff that you want to see, like fans of the book will want to see, but also it won't shut off to people who haven't read the book and can come into this with, or even seen the 1984 original and can come into this with a completely fresh perspective. And I think that is going to be helped by the fact that, yeah, the visuals look incredible. I think the effects look amazing. And what a cast! Like an
mm.
absolutely incredible cast. Timothy Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Batista, Zendaya, Jason Momoa, Javier Bardem. Like it just goes on and on and on. And
Mm.
then yeah, I think all of us watching that trailer were kind of waiting for the are they gonna do the sandworms? Are they gonna show them? Are they gonna show them? And then you get that big epic shot at the end. Yeah, it's rad, man.
They showed so much more of it than I was expecting as well. I know that obviously, like as an iconic bit of both cinema and like visual novels and stuff like that worm has kind of defined what worms would look like in many
Hmm.
sci-fi movies going forward. But yeah, I still thought they'd keep it kind of under wraps in this trailer. So it was quite novel to see like it rear up and really stare down Paul right at the end of the trailer, and you're like, oh man, that is going to be some epic stuff when
Yeah.
that confrontation happens in the movie. Because yeah, they are terrifying in the book. They are made out to be just these unstoppable forces of nature that you just have to deal with. Just another factor of how terrible it is to live on this planet because there's not a drop of water anywhere. You got to wear a tube up your nose for half your life. Yeah, it does look really really cool, and I think it like as a book that defined what sci-fi, like a lot of what the language of sci-fi is. It will be really interesting to see it given the kind of the full works that it deserves and not hopefully not be like a cut down version and really like dive into how rich and deep the book is. And the kind of book is split into multiple acts as well, and there's a lot of stuff that happens off of Arrakis in the early
Mhm.
goings that is very interesting and intriguing. And there are so many little bits of throwaway information that Frank Herbert put into the book that just like get expanded on and expanded on as you go along, and like they don't necessarily play into the wider plot, but they're so interesting because it's just it's not a helicopter, it's a something something, and he'll just like it's all that kind of that sci-fi stuff where it's all every machine is conjured from his imagination, every single bit of dialogue, every single interaction kind of furthers the idea that this is completely alien to what we know as regular humans living in a real world.
And the last thing for us to talk about is the filming for Mission Impossible 7, which is happening here in the UK and in Norway, and the footage that has been released of Tom Cruise doing this insane stunt. So, Mission Impossible 7, obviously going to see the returning cast of Tom Cruise being Rams, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, Vanessa Kirby, with new additions in Haley Atwell, Pom Clementieff, Shea Wiggum, and E.C. Morales. I was said that wrong. But yeah, this Tom Cruise stunt, this is basically him on like this sort of motorbike that's going
Mm.
across the ramp, and then this giant ramp just goes woof. And in the UK version, like he just sort of like is attached to something. In the one he did in Norway, he's just got like a parachute by the looks of it. Like he's just going this giant ramp off the side of this cliff and then just free falls for a little bit, and then opens up a parachute, just lands and is like, "Hey, I'm Tom Cruise."
Oh yeah, do you remember Practical Effects, Luke? Because they're back, baby. Yeah, I mean, that's dedication to a role. I think
Yeah.
like yeah, that's because obviously I I don't believe they did it for the first Mission Impossibles, where like, you know, he's rock climbing up the face of these hills and stops halfway to have a one-handed phone call and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is insane. Like, you know, obviously Mission Impossible has been well known for having ever escalating stunts and you know, Tom Cruise hanging off the side of a plane as it takes off, and there was a bit with a helicopter. There's like a bunch of helicopter crashes in the last one in Mission Impossible Fallout, where he ends up beating up Henry Cavill on this like remote cliffside. So like even just to get where they filmed it, it was like they had to like drop them off, jump out of a helicopter to at least get there. Like this is a franchise that does stunts probably bigger than pretty much any other franchise. Like the only other ones I can think of is like Fast and Furious, and that's only because they're just thinking, what more can we do with cars? And this is what more can we make Tom Cruise do? What hoops can he jump through? And he says, all of the hoops. I will jump through every hoop you've got, and then I'll parachute at the other end. I think Mission Impossible films are like, they're such good, easy watching. Like, they're very satisfying spy films in that sense, because it's never too complex to really follow along with. It's quite not schlocky in a bad way, but like it's very easy spy plotting, and it's double crosses that are quite heavily kind of telegraphed, and then it is a lot of race against time, globe-trotting adventures with crazier and crazier stunts. Ethan Hunt has played those odds millions of times now, and he just keeps coming out on top. And it just turns out that all along Tom Cruise has been the one doing it all, and it's mad.
It's bonkers, absolutely bonkers. I've been a big fan of the Mission Impossible franchise. Like, I think the first one that came out in the late 90s was really like, it was so confusing that I think everyone came out being like, huh? And then the second one, everyone was like, it's okay. Then the third one was like, yeah. But like from 4 onwards, like to this point now, we're at 7 and we've got 8 as well. It feels like they found like their footing, which is just like, let's just do some wacky stunts. Like what crazy stunt that can we do for this movie? What's going to be the big crazy set piece we're going to have for this movie? You know, whether it's climbing up the side of that building or you know, it's hanging off the side of a plane, or in this case, it's, you know, doing the big sort of free falling BMX motorbike thing. I think this is going to be a heck of a lot of fun, and I think that's kind of what they go for with these movies. Well, as you said, it's like that easy watching. It's perfect summer blockbuster type stuff. It's going to be out next year. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one.
I'm sat in that mindset as well of like, I bet that's only half the stunt in the film.
Oh yeah,
I bet in the film he goes off the thing, jumps off the motorbike, skydives for a bit, and then gets back into a plane or something and takes that over. Yeah, this is only half the story we're being told by this little bit of release. But I just think if you want to watch crazy stunts, and like, you know, some of the best thing to know about stunts is that they actually happened in real life, and it's not just CGI that you're watching. That, you know, that jeopardy is real, and they filmed it properly. Like, this is a really good marketing way to sort of get me invested in that for sure. And yeah, like, I've really enjoyed watching, especially since like Ghost Protocol. I've really enjoyed the Mission Impossible franchise. Like, I think I'm sort of with you. The first 3, while classics, are quite confusing, and I just think that, but they've worked out a scaling system that works very much similar to the Fast and Furious franchise, which I've brought up already. But like, you know, Fast and Furious started with a drag race. Mission Impossible started with dangling on a wire, and that was the scene that everyone talks about. That's the scene that's been parodied to death, of him just hanging on a wire. And now we end up, you know, 15 years down the line, 20 years down the line, and it's all about jumping a motorbike off a cliff. And, you know, Fast and Furious is about jumping a car between 2 skyscrapers, and one with a wrecking ball on the front. You know, films have gone nuts, really. You know, we've done all the basic stuff, so we have to keep escalating. And fortunately, Mission Impossible keeps finding ways to escalate that drama and those blockbuster moments.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week. If you want to check out any of the films that we discussed, there are links in the video description down below, so please do click all of those. I've been Luke Cohen. I'm joined by Laurie Blake. We'll see you next week.